Hi, this is Mark. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Coolidge Effect and why the incidence of cheating will likely be on the rise in the future. I'm going to talk about it using a mathematical standpoint. Hopefully, lay it out as clearly as possible. The Coolidge Effect, however, I'm not going to define it word for word based on the definition from Google, but in terms of the actual concept, the Coolidge Effect is predicated on the dampening of our reward feedback for recurring stimuli, or based on the recurrence of stimuli that has been fed into the mind from a previous point in time. So, for instance, when it comes to like sexual intercourse, if you have sex over and over and over and over, the effects, the reward is going to be dampened over time. Generally, this is the case for all. It's the case for every single situation, but the dampening effect is a function of many different variables. We continuously strive for novelty. We continuously strive for something that can feed our reward system. Think about validation. It's been shown like individuals with autism spectrum disorder, they don't yield as many facial contractions per unit time. So generally, if you smile, if you have an animated type of expression, this is not for all cases, but it's in general. The part of the issue with autism on a certain, I would just say in a certain region of the spectrum, because everyone exhibits different problems along. It's a spectrum. There's many different traits. Just because if someone has communication problems or another issue such as eye contact, it's not always the case. People with high functioning autism may exhibit great eye contact, but in terms of like the facial contractions, it's minimized. There's not as many. The emotions aren't expressed as intensely as a neurotypical, so the validation is dampened. This is why individuals with autism may experience social problems because of this factor. It's not it's not a typical response. So it's natural for us to wonder, like, or to make assumptions. I think every human can make a quick assessment or a quick assumption or judge a book by its cover, and this is in varying degrees. We're all guilty of doing so. But anyways, the reason I stated this is because the validation, the feedback that is received from a dampened response or dampened expression is also dampened. It's proportional. So you notice, like I noticed in the comment section, you notice this pattern recur over and over again. If you go to a comment section, have someone who's very animated, have someone who has dull, no emotion. Read the comments. You're going to see a disparity. You're going to see a split, a divergence. You're going to have just like the political divide. We see all these divides. You have one direction or the other, positive, negative. What we attribute as positive, what we attribute as negative. No one wants to be in a depressed state. If you're in a depressed state, you don't want to be around people because you're going to make them more depressed to a degree. I think there's certain individuals who are so attuned to the external emotions such that they really take it in, they soak it in, and it affects the nervous system. It affects their own emotion. So someone else could kind of take on the emotional expression of another person. So therefore, it's not anytime you have a dull or dulled reaction, it's going to be dull. Their reaction is going to be dull. They want to be in the positive direction, of course. So this is why it can pose problems. And same with the Coolidge effect. The reward is going to be dampened unless there's like novelty, unless there's something positive. positive energy. And that's why the personality is extremely important, of course, to maintain or prevent this prevent the decline, because the rate of decline is going to be, it's based on a function. If you just remain the same, if you don't change behavior, because we all evolve, we all have to change certain traits over time and adjust based on the trajectory of society. If you just stay in a static position and you basically repeat the same thing, or like the same conversations within a range over and over and over again, well, that's going to have an effect, a dampening effect. And then it's just going to, this is why the incidence of cheating would be on the rise if there's no display of novelty. Novelty is what keeps us allows us to recharge. It allows us to progress in some form, getting a new job, we always want something more, because we're comparing this on a relative scale to where society is. So if society is tending upward in a progressing at a faster rate, and the frequency of these interactions or the frequencies of these occurrences are exposed at a much these occurrences are exposed at a much higher frequency, then it logically makes sense that it's going to affect our drive to pursue, to go beyond our current position, to make that, it's kind of like a force that pulls us in that direction. You want to, if everyone is posting like on Instagram and Facebook just the happy moments in life, it seems as if they are happy, but they're not like displaying the other side, the darker side. And this is the general trajectory that, especially on social media platforms, when you post negative comments, just do it. You're not going to get much feedback or validation. You're not going to get many likes. But when you post a meme or something that's funny or something that's positive, you get this positive reinforcement. It becomes an addiction. And based on this addiction, just like the tolerance to alcohol, when you drink alcohol, you build a tolerance, you adapt to that feedback. Well, we adapt to this mode of this feedback. So therefore, in order to keep it, at least that feedback in equivalence, you need to increase it. And then if it, because it slowly degrades. The rate is going to be different, of course. It's based on expectation. It's based on many different factors. But the key is, just like the universe is moving forward, our minds were progressing in that direction. And novelty is a key factor. The Coolidge Effect, or the dampening agent, which is natural in every human. It's like because you don't want to degrade. You don't want to revert back to the past. No one wants to revert back. We want to go present and actually move and progress. But this is differentiated for everyone. It's going to be different cases, and it's a spectrum. Like everything's a spectrum. So the amount of dampening is going to be different. It's proportional, yes, to expectation, how content you are, and how much you value certain things. It's like what value you place on objective or these objects or these qualities or characteristics or personality traits and so forth. So that's why I believe the incidence is going to increase, because we are exposed to more options today. There's more opportunities. There's more. We are also receiving reward at a much higher frequency. So if you take a timeline, to represent each event frame as a subset of the timeline. What I mean by event, if we define event frame, like, how would I define it? This would be, think of like your position in space is within a globalized, or it's in a localized region. And let's define the region by area. Let's say the area is, let's suppose the area is, or the radius, think of like a circular region, and the radius stays static. So this is an event. The event is defined based on how long we spend within such a region. Well, because there's more populations higher, there's more distractions, there's more technology. People want to travel more because there's more exposure. We notice that the frequency of exchange on social media platforms is expanding. More people are traveling all over the globe, so we want to do so. It's like a force that pulls you in that direction. It influences you in that direction. There's more phone, there's more stimuli and so forth. We're moving more in units in the unit space. We're moving more directions and diverging, or we're likely. It's more probable that we're going to do so, and so therefore this subset is going to condense, and basically, if we can think we derive some reward within this subspace, the reward is going to be targeted at a more frequent basis. So we're going to adapt to that, and it's going to define a new neutral axis, and we have to therefore a new positive axis or axis is going to define positive. Anything below the neutral axis is going to be negative. So what this means is, and this is necessary condition, because if society needs to go in the positive direction, if it needs to progress, and the demands of society are increasing, we have to push the bar higher. And what this does is, of course, it raises the standard, raises the bar, and therefore increases the probability of cheating, because the reward is going to be dampened in proportion to how high the bar raises. In terms of the frequency of the reward feedback, it's gonna be dampened, because we get so adjusted to that rate that if anything goes below that neutral axis, it's a negative now. But before in the past it was lower, and therefore and therefore the positive was defined in the negative zone in the future. So this is very interesting. It's like, because we are driven by instinctual drives. Sexual intercourse, relationships, these are driven by instinctual, innate drives. And the only thing that represses it, the only thing that antagonizes it or depresses this instinctual reaction is logic. The more you think, the harder it is for you to go with the feeling. And I mean, I've experienced this myself, because I tend to repress it, and therefore I don't know how to use. I'm not comfortable at managing my feelings, and it becomes almost like a chaotic state and more childish reaction. But I don't. It's hard for me to. I don't have that instinctual. It's very hard for me to actually express this. That's why I've never dated in my 30 years. Partially, I mean, I've been rejected multiple times, and I think that has to do a lot with the way I present myself, the way I speak, the way it could be very boring, just the stuff I do talk about. I think I have a tendency to bore people, because I've been told that many times. I go on, and no one's listening, no one's paying attention, and I don't even realize that. So, but receptivity, I think receptivity has to do with chemistry. There has to be some chemical components. There has to be some feedback, something that makes you feel good. And that's why I think the validation, what I mentioned before, being animated, being expressive, it really increases the probability of success, because it's a novel. It's always changing. It's transient. It's not static, like someone who's always dull, someone that doesn't show much emotion. It's always like that. You're not going to get that reward, and so therefore, and this feedback is a summation. It's a summation, and that summation dictates the expectation and the standards and so forth. And so, and that's just what I think is going to happen. It's, of course, what I just mentioned. It's not. I mean, this isn't necessarily going to be the case, but based on probability, it seems more likely. I like to think of things in probabilistic terms, because it's like life is like a game of chess. You make with infinitely many moves that are possible, but many blunders that we make. We make so many blunders in life, it's not even funny. But with that blunder, we have to go back, analyze the situation, try to make a better, more fitting move. It's like making the best fit of an equation. You have data points, multiple data points. You want to organize these points, project it, and get the best fit to target the destination to the highest, uh, such that such that the distance becomes minimized. In order for the distance to become minimized, you need a line segment that connects two nodes together. But there's always that progression. We always have multiple progressions. It's not just like you get to one destination, you get to multiple destinations. That's why in life, in order to prevent this effect from happening, there has to be drive, there has to be passion, there has to be progression, there has to be positivity, there has to be all these things, because our demands are increasing, and therefore the competition's going to be, things are going to get more, it's going to be more competitive, it's going to be harder to attain or derive the satisfaction if everything stays at the same position. So therefore, this Coolidge effect is definitely going to take hold unless we have the awareness. And I just think success is not just fame, it's not just money, it's not just attainment of all these superficial values. But success is defined by your own, your own mindset at the position, at the current position. Success is changing. Your viewpoint is always going to be changing, and success is really just, to me, even it's involved in every aspect of life. It's just how you take it, how you take the feedback, whether you transform the feedback as a positive or a negative. If it's transformed as a negative, that's going to depress your your outlook of success and so forth, and it's going to depress the future, your ability to leverage everything and so forth. So that's just my take on this. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.